Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Yesterday, a poll that made quite a bit of headlines showing Ted Cruz was only up by about 3 points over his Democratic challenger, Beto O'Rourke. The poll released by Quinnipiac yesterday and made headlines nationally. A lot of people looked at it. Quinnipiac said, the race is too close to call. But is it really? Our next guest joining us, the CEO of WPA Intelligence. It's Chris Wilson. Chris, good morning. Welcome to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you taking some time today.
Yeah, you bet. Happy to do it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about this poll that was released yesterday. Obviously, it made all the headlines. Quinnipiac saying the race is too close to call. They say it's within 3 points. What do you think about this poll that was released?
Well, Quinnipiac is a university polling company, and they're kind of like the Nickelback of polling. And what I mean by that is, somebody hears their numbers the first time, they kind of like it, and then after that, they sort of start to get annoyed and wish they'd just go away. And it's with the whole process of them deciding to do work in Texas. It's the first poll they've done in the state. I'll tell you, if you haven't polled in Texas before, it's not the easiest thing to do. Chad, like I do work for both Senator Cruz and Governor Abbott and a lot of other folks in the state. And I was actually executive director of the Republican Party of Texas back a few moons ago, when then Governor Bush when George W. Bush was the governor of the state. So right. Over the course, I don't know how many surveys I've done in the state of Texas, but I probably have talked to just about all of your listeners and just about everybody in all 254 counties at some point, and they usually while they're sitting down to dinner. And what happens is whenever you're trying to talk to someone in an off-year election in Texas, I'll just tell you, going back to 2002, turnout in off years has averaged 37% in Texas. So that's likely voters. So 37% of people in Texas are likely to vote. Registered voters in Texas are likely to vote. And what Quinnipiac did is they talked to anybody who said they were registered to vote. Now, typically people who are not registered to vote don't know if they're registered to vote or not. We find that overwhelmingly. So really, if you think about it, there are somewhere in the range of 5 million people that are going to vote come November. And the Quinnipiac poll, in essence, talked to somewhere around 15 million people, or represents somewhere around 15 million people. So you can calculate out very quickly that 10 million of those are not going to vote.
Right. Yeah, and one of the other issues in this poll was who they really looked at, correct? I know a lot of, even the Dallas Morning News, said, well, wait a minute here. There are a lot of these independents that are polled in this one.
Oh, that's exactly right, Chad. Once you get beyond just the registered voter to likely voter sample, then when you get into within the people they talk to, it was also off pretty dramatically. As you said, independents, they oversampled independents by 10 points. They undersampled Republicans by 8 points. But the weird thing about independents is even with those independents, I typically would not have a problem with that because independents, both Ted Cruz and Governor Abbott are winning independents overwhelmingly. We put out some numbers for Senator Cruz not too long ago, in which he was up 18 points statewide. I guess we were the only polling firm that had Ted Cruz beating David Dewhurst in the runoff a couple years ago, and anybody can go to Real Clear Politics and check that. We've got a pretty good record in the state. Well, we've got Ted Cruz beating Beto O'Rourke by almost 20 points with independents, 52-34. Wow. So it's for them to have Cruz losing independents and then to oversample them, I think it's wrong. They had Greg Abbott losing with independents and to Lupe Valdez. He's not. He's winning independents overwhelmingly against Lupe Valdez. So the challenge I think that exists here from an overall standpoint is not only was it a sample of the wrong people, it was a sample of people who don't vote. And even whenever they did talk to those people who are going to vote, as I wrote yesterday, it looked to me more like a poll of voters in California than it did voters in Texas. I know Texas voters pretty well, and they love Greg Abbott and they love Ted Cruz, and it is, I will make the stunning prediction, I'm sure, right now on your radio show, that both of them will be reelected in November overwhelmingly.
What's the difference then between when you're doing the polling and the polls that you have done where you show that Cruz is winning independents by 20 points? Where does that difference fall? Is it the type of question being asked, or is it the type of voter that you're talking to?
No, it's a really good question, and to drill down on that, I mean, I could talk about that. There's semester-long classes that are taught in methodology. There's even degrees you can get in methodology. So I'll do my best not to put your listeners to sleep this morning. But the simple aspect of it is we score there are 15.5 million registered voters in Texas, 20 million people. And of those 15.5 million registered voters, we have collected data going back to, really since it's been collected, in which we record whether or not a person has voted. So that is, overall, we build a predictive model for every single person in Texas, and we apply it when new people move into the state that takes into account those scores using machine learning algorithms that scores all 15 million voters for their likelihood to vote. We then, once someone scores as a likely voter, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money to do over. You can't just do one poll and get it right. So that's one of the reasons why. The other reason is just our overall experience and how we talk to people.
And how hard is it to get a good sample here in this state? Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay. I know you're on a train between cities, so that may happen. But what I asked was, how hard is it to get a good representative sample of Texans? How hard is that to get in one of these polls?
It's not all that difficult, but you've got to have experience doing it. It's like I'm sure somebody asked you, how hard is it to do a radio show? Well, you get up in the morning, you do it, you've done it every day, so you've just gotten good at it. But if today somebody walked in for the first time ever and tried to do it, they probably wouldn't be very good at it.
Right.
And Texas is unique. I mean, like I said, there are 254 counties in Texas. All of them are somewhat homogeneous in their approach. There are 20 media markets in Texas. All of them have to be sampled differently and set up differently in terms of the way that we talk to voters. A lot of our interviews are conducted in Spanish. I mean, that is very important as well. You can't just do a bunch of surveys in English. So I think if you look at the overall approach to doing a survey in Texas, it is because of the size of it, because of the number of people, because of the diversity of the voting population. It's not something you can just do the same way you might do a survey in New Jersey or New York or Pennsylvania or some of the other places where Quinnipiac does a lot of work. It is a very unique state, and it is just so large and so populated that it takes experience.
Very interesting. Before I let you go, Chris, and we're visiting with Chris Wilson with WPA Intelligence. Before I let you go, and you mentioned earlier that you think you made the prediction that Cruz and Abbott will win, pretty easily over their opponents and whoever Greg Abbott might be running against.
Right.
Do you think it's going to be by 18 points? Do you see a closer race, like double digits, 9, 8, 12 points? What are you thinking as of right now? I know we're still a long ways away from November.
Yeah, we are. We're a long way out, Chad. I think here's what I'll say to that. That's entirely up to Republicans in Texas. I mean, the 2018 is going to be a turnout election. And look, I'm a market researcher, but I work for Republicans, and I'm a conservative, and I'm passionate about conservatism and the type of government that Ted Cruz and Greg Abbott have brought to Texas. So what I would say is, if both of them, Greg Abbott should win in 2018 by at least the same number he beat Wendy Davis in 2014. The same with Ted Cruz from when he won in 2012. Having said that, Republicans kind of hold it in their hands. I would say it could be as little as 8 or 9 points, which is, as you know, that's what Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton in Texas by in 2016. It also could be as much as 18 to 20 points, depending on what happens with Republicans. Yeah. If Republicans turn out and they vote in the same way they did in 2014 and 2010 and even 2012, then you'll see overwhelming victories by both, and I think double digits.
Very interesting. Chris Wilson, I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll visit with you again during this election season, and we'll talk about all the crazy polling that will be done between now and then.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can follow Chris, by the way, on Twitter at WilsonWPA. That's at WilsonWPA on Twitter.